Hi, Stephanie from Always in Stitches. We feel really bad that we're not able to give one-on-one classes here at the store right now. Hopefully we'll be able to do that in 2021. But until then, we want to give you a quick overview of the 6700. 6700 is an industrial machine. It's got a metal base. It's heavy duty, so if you are into bag making or draperies or anything that requires a little more strength, a little more power, this is the machine for you. So what I'm going to do is go step by step with the obvious things on the machine. We're not going to go into real detail because we know we don't want you to get bored, but we're going to go into step by step with the features of this machine. I'm going to start with threading it. If you notice, it has a thread guide. And it comes with thread nets and a thread spool so that you can use the big spools of thread. If you're doing industrial sewing or if you're sewing for a living and you're doing it for customers, you'll want to use the bigger threads than what you normally would do just for piecing. So you've got that capability with this machine. So I'm just going to thread it. Just like many of the other Janomes, there's steps that you go through to thread it. Before I do that, though, I'm going to show you how to do the bobbin. So you do just like what I did, go through this guide and this guide, floss it into this tension disc, wrap it around the bobbin, push this over and hit the bobbin winder. The bobbin button. That's going to wind your bobbin for you. So it's very similar to other Janomes. Just wanted to touch base with you on that before I went any further. And then we'll go back over to threading, and it's got the numbers just like every other Janome. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. And you go behind this little hook right here. Then take your thread over to the left of the machine, cut it on the thread cutter over there, and always make sure you do needle up, needle down to make sure your needle is in the right position. And I like to lower my foot. When you lower your foot, the tension discs are closed, so your thread is not going to slip. Not required, but that's what I like to do. So then this button on this side is what you use to thread it. And just like that, the wire went through the eye of the needle and it's threaded. It's just that simple. And as far as the bobbin goes, it's like other Janomes. With the guide on the front of the bobbin case cover shows you how to load the bobbin. The thread comes off to the left like a P. Drop it in. Make sure it goes underneath this disc or this little this is a tension slot. Go around the cutter and cut your bobbin thread. Now when you do this, it causes a little bit of a buildup on the back of your fabric. So if you don't like that feature, just bring your thread up like you normally would. So that's how to thread it. Now this machine has a start-stop button, which you can use to run the machine, or it has this great big foot pedal. You can't do both. If this is plugged in, this won't work. I got used to using the foot pedals or the start and stop, so that's what I do. And for demoing, it's much easier to do than the foot pedal. So that's what that is. This is your reverse button. This is a locking stitch. This is the needle up, needle down that I was talking about that you want to do before you thread to make sure your needle's in the right position. And then this is the one that everyone loves. It cuts your thread for you. This is the speed, how fast your machine is going. This up here is your tension, and this is your foot pressure. I'm sorry, this is your foot pressure, this knob right here. So when you're doing something heavy, you want more pressure. Or less pressure. When you're doing something light, you want more pressure. And then this is your tension disc. Now on this side of the machine, you've got mode. This machine comes in 3 modes. Mode 1 is basically your utility stitches. Mode 2 is going to go to all of your decorative stitches. And then mode 3 takes you to the alphabet, uppercase and lowercase. So you can stitch out a cute little label if you wanted to do that. And you can put this in memory so you can stitch out a name. You just put the number of the stitch. For example, this one is in mode 3, 001 is a K. So you just 001, memory, and then put the next number and the next number. That's how you do it. So that's what this piece here is. Don't have to have it on there, but it's handy if you're switching from different kinds of stitches. So to get to them, you just hit the mode button. I'm in mode 2 now, mode 3, and I'm back to mode 1. This will display on the window here. So if I'm going to go to mode 2 and I hit this, it's displaying all of the stitches, all of them in this mode 2 area. So if you don't want to look up here and see what that number is, you can just turn this dial and get to that number quicker than stopping and looking. But that's what that is for. This is your twin needles. So if you're doing decorative stitching or you're doing a garment and you want the twin stitches on it, or yeah, twin stitches, dual needles, that's what that is. This is a mirror image. So if you've got a design that you like, say you're doing a blouse and you want the design shape to go in on both sides, you can hit the mirror image and that pattern will mirror image itself so that it will be the same direction on both sides. This is the Elongate. This will make your stitches longer, and those are all of the satin stitches. And this button here is that's what turns your bobbin on and off. This is for memory and for a favorite stitch. If you want to program a favorite stitch, this is where you would do it. Or if you want to program a pattern, say you're making labels and you don't want to have to key it in every time, you could program it in your memory and put it in a file, and that way you won't have to do it again. You can just hit that and go right to it. The B here takes you to the beginning of the stitch again. So if you stop in the middle and at the end of where you're sewing and you want to start over again in the next side and you want it to be at the beginning of the stitches you programmed, then you would hit that. This is a set mode. This is where you set all the particular things about the machine here. And this is going to take you forward and backwards on the screen here. It's going to show you what's there. I'm not saying that right. I'm sorry. This is going to go. Okay, this is going from all of these stitches. I started off at 1. This has taken me now to 5, 6, 7. So I can go through the stitches this way again without having to look up and see what the stitches actually are. And this is a locking stitch. So when you change your needle or when you thread your needle, you should always lock it so that you don't accidentally bump the start button and it start running when you're not prepared for it to run. So that's all of these keys. This is your memory, and this will clear your memory. I'm going to take the lock off. So that pretty much sums up the front of the machine. I don't think I talked about this. This is your speed governor. You can speed it up or slow it down with this button here. And as you're sewing, if you're using the start-stop button versus the foot pedal, if you hold that button in, you're able to slow it down on your own without having to move this. It will go to 1 stitch at a time. Let me show you real quick with the scrap of fabric. Now I want to get to straight stitch. Oh, got to get in stitch 1 or mode 1. There we go, straight stitch. I'm going to go fast. Now I'm coming to the end, and I want to go really slow so I get to where I want to stop. So you don't have to reach up here and slow it down. You can just hold that in, and it will take you 1 stitch at a time when you're coming close to the end of your whatever you're stitching. So I'm just going to hit this scissor cut, cuts my thread, and there's my stitch. It's a feature that not everyone realizes, but it's really handy when you use it. So, right now we have the A foot on. Again, this is similar to every other Janome. The letter in the middle here is what the foot is. It's what foot you're using. And on your display screen, it will show you what foot to use with different stitches. The way these are made, the Janome machines have 2 feet that are open, where you can do a zigzag stitch or a straight stitch, but they're made a little different on the bottom. A lot of the decorative stitches and zigzag stitches go forward and backward, so these are made very smooth so that your fabric will easily slide back and forth as the stitch is being formed, where these are straighter. Makes it easier to do a straight line or a straight stitch on your machine. Now, excuse me, these feet just snap on and off. One thing to know about this A foot is it's got this little black button on the side here, and what that does is it locks your foot horizontal. So as you're sewing and you come to a thicker seam, say you're making a mask or you're making a bag, get right up to that thick seam, drop your needle, push this in and lock it, and that will will go up and over instead of getting stuck on that stitch and kind of pivoting right there. So that's what that little button is for. So that's the A foot. This is the F foot. Like I said, most of the decorative stitches are going to tell you to use the F foot, and it's made where your fabric can slide back and forth as it's forming the stitch. These both go on, these both just snap on. Along with the F foot, we have an F2 foot, which is open, which is great for applique or anything that you're doing that you need to see how close you are to the edge of something that you're doing. This is like an open toe version of the F foot so that you can get a better eye of what you're doing. So look at this, look at my display here. These are the feet that come with this machine. So I'm just going to go through them one at a time. This is the O foot. It's got a flange on the side, and this is for 1/4 inch stitching. The O foot is for 1/4 inch. The E foot is your zipper foot, so you can go on either side of the zipper, depending on which side that you're doing, fairly easily. This is a rolled hem. So if you'd like to make placemats or little dresses for little girls or something that just needs a really small little hem, this rolled hem does a beautiful, beautiful job. On this machine, it comes with the 2mm rolled hem, but they do make a 4 and a 6mm that makes it a little bit easier to do, but that's what that foot is. This is your stitch in the ditch or blind hem. So if you are still doing hemming, excuse me, hemming pants, that's what this is for. I use it for stitch in the ditch as well as blind hem. For me, it takes me a minute or two to get a blind hem stitch going because I can never remember exactly how to fold the fabric, but the book here has excellent instructions on every single type of stitch you want to make and every foot that comes with the machine. This is to sew your buttons down. You put this foot on, you pick the button stitch, and within 2 or 3 seconds, you have a button sewn on. So that's really, really handy. This one is the M foot, which is the over edge foot. Creates a stitch similar to a serger. So this goes on the edge of your fabric, and it just makes an over edge stitch. The way this one is made, these wires are loose on the back. So when you use this and you take your fabric out, you want to make sure that you pull your fabric to the back so that you don't bend these wires. This is the Accu-Feed Foot. It takes the place of the walking foot on the lower end machines, and what it does is it adds these extra feed dogs. There are 5 extra feed dogs added to keep the fabric together as it's moving forward. If you're a garment sewer and you like to use plaids, you want to use this foot because it will hold those two together so that your plaids match up perfectly. it's a great foot. And the way this one is made, this part of it slides off, and a different one can be slid right back onto this foot. They make an open toe, they make a 1/4 inch, and they make a stitch in the ditch that also goes with this. That's just a little extra, but comes in handy when you need to do different things. And of course, if you bought your machine with us, then you know you get 20% off of those. So that's that. These feet here, all three have to do with quilting. So this is for free motion quilting on your machine. This is a free open toe foot for free motion quilting. And the way it's made, this little screw comes out and this goes back in it. And the same with this. This is kind of like shadow working. If you want to do the same distance away from the seam before, you can use this circle as a guide. So that's what that foot is for, along with the open toe. And this is for darning, and it can also be used for free motion quilting, but this machine comes with specific feet that work better for it. So that's what that is. Excuse me. This is your buttonhole foot. You put your button into this area right here, tighten it up, and when this is attached to the machine, which I'll show you in a moment, it has a little button that you pull down, and it stitches in between these two spaces. And when that little button hits this back one, it knows that it's made a stitch and it needs to come back and do the other side. And then these two little marks here is if you need your buttonhole to be a little longer or a little shorter. You can adjust it a little bit by turning this screw. So if you've made one and it's not quite perfect, adjust it a little bit with this. That's what that foot is. Excuse me. Now, the machine comes with 3 throat plates. The standard throat plate, which is the open, has the open area for any stitch that this machine will stitch. You can do all decorative stitches and anything else you want to.
You're good. Go.
This machine comes with 3 different throat plates. One that's completely open for any stitch that is on the machine. One with 3 holes that is made more for straight stitching, and one with 1 single hole with a foot that goes with it. This is called the HP foot or plate, and this is the HP foot. And the reason that you need a plate for this is because it's for single hole or single straight stitching only. With these 2 on your machine, there's no room for the thread or the needle to wiggle around very much and make kind of a wonky straight stitch. If you look at your stitches on a stitch out a straight line, you might see a couple of stitches kind of go a little bit to the left or a little bit to the right. This helps prevent that because it just keeps that thread and that needle straight right up and down in that hole. No room to wiggle. Kind of like the old machines when they were first made, they didn't have a zigzag, so their straight stitch was beautiful. Then when they came out with decorative stitches and a zigzag, it kind of lost a little bit of the integrity of a straight stitch. Well, this one brings that right back. So this is a great, great foot. This is a foot and a throat plate that I use 99% of the time on this machine. I do a lot of piecing, and that's what I use for that. So I'm going to show you, I'm going to put these feet down, back over here. I'm going to show you how easy it is to change the throat plate. And while I'm doing that, I'm going to show you that this comes with an instruction book. Very, very easy to follow, easy to read. It will explain every single button on this machine and how to make it. And every stitch that's on there, it will give you a sample of how you should set it. Let's say round in and fine buttonhole, fine fabric buttonholes. This stitch is going to tell you what pattern to use, what pressure foot, what thread tension, what foot pressure, what mode you need to be in, everything you need to do to make this particular stitch. And it does it with all of the stitches. One by one, it will show you the best way to set your machine up to make that particular stitch. Great book. This machine also comes with this huge extension table. I don't know about you, but I couldn't do a lot of sewing without a big extension table. I don't want to support my quilt or my fabric in my lap as I'm sewing. It takes away some of the integrity of what I'm doing because you can't, it just will sag a little bit, and then that just is not good for your quilt. But I wanted to show you how to change the throat plate. This button right here is all you have to do. That easy. That comes off. And this comes on. I'm going to put this on. This is the single hole one for the high performance foot. That's it. Now if you notice, look at the screen. It's saying make sure you have the right foot on for that particular throat plate. It won't let me go to any stitches that this is not able to do. This is strictly for straight stitch. So if you look at the screen here, if I go to mode, I can't go to mode 2 because mode 2 is decorative stitches that need that full space to stitch out. So this is only going to allow me to do these stitches right here. So I'm going to put that foot on. For this foot, and for a couple of the other feet, you have to take the ankle off. This is what we call an ankle, and most of the feet just kind of snap on it. But there's a few, like this one, like your Accu-Feed and like your darning feet. They don't need the ankle. That's part of the foot. So I tighten it up with my hand, and then I tighten it up with the screwdriver just a little bit to make sure that it's on there good. And now I'm just going to do a couple of stitches. I'm going to slow it down a little bit so it's not quite so fast and let you see. Listen how quiet this machine is. We're on a plastic table, no support, and yet you can barely hear it running. Look at that stitch. That's beautiful. Beautiful straight stitch. None of those little wonkies that go sideways sometimes when you're doing a straight stitch. I love this. Plus it's just perfect on the side for 1/4 inch. So this is one of my favorite feet. This is one of the reasons why I own this machine, so that I can get this foot. If you're like most of us, we have more than one machine. I bought this machine for the heavy dutiness of it and for that foot because I like how the stitches play out when they're done. So I'm going to put this ankle foot back on, and I'm just going to show you a couple of how a couple of the feet work. Okay, let's start with the 1/4 inch. Snap that on. And we're going to pretend that this is our quilt that we're making, and this is the edge of it. We're sewing these two pieces together. So we're going to set that down. And if any of you watched Cappy's video, she talked about your 1/4 inch and how either you push into this flange right here, or you don't. You just kind of leave it as a guide right there. I kind of am a pusher myself. So I push into it. So I want it to butt right up against that. So I want to do a 1/4 inch seam. So on this particular mode, it's stitch number 4. It automatically moved my needle over. This machine has 91 stitch positions or needle positions that you can put it in. This controls your needle position. If you look and listen, it's so quiet you can't, won't do that on that stitch. Okay, now I'm back on stitch 1. It's allowing me to move it all the way to the left and back all the way to the right. And if you hear those little clicks, there's 91 clicks as to where you can put that needle. When I had it on the 1/4 inch foot, it wouldn't let me do that because to do a 1/4 inch foot, I can't go over that far. The machine knows that you can't do a 1/4 inch foot or 1/4 inch, do this stitch and move your needle all the way over. So this is 1/4 inch. So it gives you a 1/4 inch seam. And again, I'm a pusher, So I have to measure when I get done to make sure that I've got a good 1/4 inch seam. And while I'm talking about it, these two buttons control your needle position and your stitch length. When you're doing piecing and you do a 1/4 inch foot, it tightens your stitch up to 1.8. Normally, that's about a 2.4 or 2.5, which is a little looser stitch. But when you're doing piecing and you're cutting your pieces apart to make them into a different square, you want a little bit tighter stitch. So on this machine, you don't have to think about it. When you go to your 1/4 inch foot stitch, then it's going to change the position of the needle and make the stitch length tighter so that you can get that good tight stitch for piecing. That's another one of the things I love about this machine. Let's do an over edge. Just going to do a couple because we don't want to bore you with all the stuff on this machine. If you've had it, you've probably played with it a little bit, so you know some of these things, but just want to kind of do a refresher since we're not doing classes. So this fits right on the edge of your fabric. Oops, got to switch it to a stitch that will do that. Let's go to stitch 14. Go to mode 2. And it's calling for the M foot, and that's what this one is. This is the M foot. And if you see the stitch here, it's going to be a little over edge, and it's telling me that this is how wide this will go, 5 millimeters, and it's tighter. It's at 2.0. Oh, I think I came unthreaded. Looks like it. Just like that, I'm rethreaded. It looks like I might have got my fabric over just a little bit too far. But if you can see that, you can see that that is like an over edge stitch. Let me try one that's a little bit better. Nope. I'm looking at the stitches to know which one goes with this foot. Okay, I'm going to try this again because I didn't really like the way that one ended up looking. That looks a little better. So you don't have to invest in a serger if you're doing garments and you want your edges to be finished, or if you're doing draperies and you want your edges to be finished. That makes a really nice over edge stitch. One of the other feet that I particularly like is the rolled hem. And like I said, this stitch, or this foot, comes in two that are bigger. Oops, let's go back to mode 1, stitch 1. There we go. Now, just kind of hold your fabric so that we'll keep making that turn, and you get a beautiful little hem. Not getting a hold of it. This was not a very good example, but I'll show you what it looks like. See how small that hem is? Most of it got turned under. There's a couple spots where I didn't get a hold of it right. There's a trick that I like to use, but I don't have a pair of scissors in here with me, and that is to cut the little corner of that off. That keeps it, that makes it flow without getting caught, because if you don't have that little piece there, then it flows a lot easier. But that is the road hem foot. Comes in very handy if you're doing garments. I think that I will put on the Accu-Feed Foot just so that you can see what this foot does. And for this one, we don't need the ankle because it comes with an ankle. Once you get this foot attached, there's a little lever on the foot that fits into this space here in the back, right here, that actually connects to the shaft of the machine, and as the needle is going up and down, that is making this foot function. It doesn't go over the needle bar like some walking feet do. I'm going to tighten it just a little bit, make sure it's on there good. We'll just do another quick little stitch with this. Now these are, well, I'm just going to do a straight stitch on this one. Makes a little more noise because as it's moving, these extra feed dogs are going up and down and holding those two layers of fabric together. Janome's feed dogs, normally there's 7 on your regular, on the machine itself. This adds another 5 that holds those pieces together so that when you're trying to match up something, it holds it together and it does a great job. I experimented with plaids one day just to see if that really did work, the difference between this and a walking foot, and it really does work. Look at that beautiful stitch. That's a great stitch on this machine. Okay, I think we've gone through everything. Well, let's do one more thing before we quit. Let's do one more thing because this is really kind of geared towards people that make garments, in that it's heavy duty and it's just got a lot of great features for garment makers. I'm going to do a buttonhole really quick. Oh, we need the ankle. So this just, well, you put your, I'm going to pretend that I have a button. I put it in here and I tightened it up. And then I'm going to put it on the machine here. Get a piece of fabric. And now I'm going to pick a buttonhole, and that is in stitch 2. And I'm going to go to 0, 2, 3. That's the first buttonhole on there. So now I'm going to put it down, and it didn't tell me to lower this thing. This little lever right here is what you lower down, because when it starts here and then when it hits this piece right here, then the buttonhole is made. Oh, speed it up a little bit here. Oh, came unthreaded again. We'll just start that over. I just hit clear. It's going to start it over. Oops, can't do it with that on there. Okay, mode 2. Now, let's try this again. See, it hit this little part of the foot right here, and it knows that it needs to come back and finish that side, and then it will go to the other side. And when that hits that, then it knows it needs to come back and finish the buttonhole. When it finishes, it locks itself. And you have a nice little buttonhole. So that's some of the features on this machine. I hope you get a little bit out of this. Like I said in the beginning, we're really anxious to get people back in here to do classes so that we can do this one-on-one, so we can answer your questions that you have, so that you get a little bit more out of these classes than what we're doing here. But we want to give you an idea of just what this machine will do and what the different feet are for. So hope you enjoy it, and hopefully we will have classes soon. Bye.